Hi guys, it's Alexandra. Today I'm going to be talking with Ben, who's a nurse from New Jersey. He's going to be giving us his inside eyes onto the front lines and talking about how the virus is progressing and what the public should know about it. He's also going to be talking about how he uses music and art to teach about the pandemic as well. So I hope that you will check out his content. I'll leave it below and you can subscribe for more videos. All right, thank you.
I'm an EMT. So I just finished a shift in the ER, and I know that a lot of people are talking about the second wave in the future tense. And all I can tell you is it's already here. We're already seeing the numbers going up. And I have friends that are hosting indoor board game nights with up to 10 people. And I'm just putting this out there to let people know, like, take this seriously before it gets bad, before you start hearing stories about your friends and how they didn't know. And yeah, it's already here. So be safe. And I've been a scribe for the past 4 years. So a lot of people don't know what that is. Basically, a scribe walks into the patient's room with the doctor. They listen in on the whole conversation, and they're taking notes. And then when we go back to the computers, the doctors can put in orders for x-rays and CTs and EKGs and all that, and then I write the charts. So if a doctor is supposed to see 20 patients in a day, that would be 20 charts that they have to write. And if you have me do that for you, you save a lot of time, you get to see more patients, help more people. So, and then the past 2 years I've been in nursing school. I just graduated in May, and going to be starting a job as an ER nurse soon.
So what has been your experience so far with the pandemic?
So in the very beginning, I remember a lot of emails were going out in the ambulance corps about just wearing as much PPE as possible when interacting with patients. We would double glove, we would have on gowns. It was required that most of us wear N95s. And then a bunch of us also, I started asking other people and paramedics especially, because they have to intubate. So they're getting all up in the patient's grill. I asked them what works best for them, and I was recommended this P100. So this has basically got like an N95 on either side, and two valves, and then one open valve here for when I exhale. All patients get the paper mask. I remember in the beginning we were using oxygen masks as masks. We just didn't have them in stock, so we had to improvise. And were there any other props? A bunch of us started wearing scrub caps. Basically every nurse and every doctor is wearing a scrub cap now. And here's face shields. We always wear face shields when we're dealing with a known COVID patient. Now, I mean, the numbers in New Jersey have gone down a bit. They're starting to come back up, but we don't necessarily wear the face shields for every patient we interact with. But if we know that they've got COVID, definitely need that. Last prop, I just like grabbed all these last second because I was looking around the house. I'm like, I have a lot of things that I could show off. I hear a lot of people complaining about how uncomfortable masks are, and I totally get that. I'm not going to try to deny that. But one solution that I found is with these plastic inserts. You can find them on Amazon. They're super cheap, and you just put that there and then put the mask over it, and it makes sure that the mask isn't like French kissing you every time you inhale. So, and it also helps when it comes to my chin likes to pull the mask down, and then it exposes the nose, and I find this helps with that to a certain degree.
What first caught my attention is that you put out a video on TikTok recently kind of saying like, hey guys, you might think this virus is like coming to an end, but actually it's real and it's getting a lot worse. So how do you know, how can you tell from your day-to-day work experience that COVID is escalating?
It just comes down to how many COVID patients we have.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're designating certain areas, adult care critical care unit 2, that becomes the COVID corner because that's the area that has the doors as opposed to curtains.
Hmm.
So we're putting more patients in there. A lot of times people will come in for one thing and then we find out later that they had COVID.
Hmm.
Um, and that's always the scariest part is when you had the patient that was asymptomatic and you've interacted with them this whole time and then you find out they had COVID and you're like, wait, I didn't put on the face shield when I was with them. How exposed was I?
What are some memorable experiences or stories that you can think of so far about dealing kind of firsthand with a COVID patient?
The only one that stands out to me was really it was a simple complaint. It wasn't even a patient calling for COVID symptoms. It was just a lift assist. Someone fell out of bed, but we put them back in bed, and seeing how frail he was, I just knew that he didn't have long, and we knew that his wife had COVID, so we knew he was going to get it sooner or later. They were living in close quarters, so uh, it's it's that feeling like you know what's going to happen, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Right.
So, what does a day at work look like in a hospital during this virus?
We have 7 a.m. when they change shift from the night shift to the day shift. All the nurses have a big huddle, and the nurse manager explains what the current situation is every day, and people voice their concerns if they have them. Um, so that keeps us all up to date. We've got a whiteboard where we write down like what are the changes that we're making every day. Uh, yeah, that's
Does the environment seem much more like chaotic than it was pre-pandemic, or do people, do staff seem like overwhelmed with what's going on at all?
in March. It was definitely the most chaotic. That was, I mean, again, then I was in nursing school at the time, so I was suffering from some pretty bad survivor's guilt because I'm comfy at home making PowerPoints about breastfeeding, and my friends are all getting sick and telling me that it's a war zone out there. So it that was hard not being able to make as much of a difference as I wanted to, but it was really bad uh, in March. I work at St. Joseph's in Patterson. It's the I think it's the fifth busiest ER in the country. It was third that someone got busier,
Yeah.
but
So obviously, there's hundreds of thousands of nurses across the world dealing with similar circumstances as you, and their work days probably look similar. But they'll just, talk about it with their staff or their families and friends. What made you decide that you should speak out about it on TikTok and make videos about it?
well, normally my TikTok account isn't for medical stuff. I mean, the account name is Ben's Right Brain as an extension of my Instagram for the right brain stuff that I do, the creative stuff. I have a Ben's Left Brain for the medical side of me. Um, and I almost didn't post that video at all, and I almost set it to mutuals, but then I thought it would be weird to only warn my friends. Um, I worked a shift in the ER, and I saw that the numbers were going up, and I had just been invited to a party earlier that week, and the cognitive dissonance of seeing the public perception of it versus the reality of it, I just felt like warning people, and I didn't think that it would blow up the way that it did. I thought maybe 100 people would see it and that would be the end of it. But I mean, people have been pouring in comments telling me about their experiences with COVID or their friends or their families. One person said that 3 days ago that her dad had just come home, and then this morning I got an update saying that her father had passed. So it's been eye opening to me as well
Hmm.
what other people all over the country are going through. I mean, I know it's happening, but it's just it's different to hear it straight from them.
Hmm.
So, since you are seeing it firsthand every day, what are some major things you think the public are misunderstanding about the status of the virus right now?
Well, I think one of the things that I hear a lot is this idea that, oh well, it's only 2%, 1 or 2% fatal. And we do a pretty bad job at processing large numbers or really small numbers. 1% doesn't seem like that bad until you multiply it by the total number of people in the US. I think it's only 10% of the US that's contracted COVID so far, and we have, 200,000 deaths? So when people talk about herd immunity and they're like, oh, we'll just lose 1%, but we'll develop herd immunity, you have to multiply that 200,000 by 10. And that's how many people you're looking at losing. I think the last I checked, we lost 1 in 1,400 Americans. And that's just within the US. I mean, there's plenty going on outside of our borders, but people just, I think part of why it spread so bad is because of its inconsistency.
Mm-hmm.
If it was somehow 100% fatal, if it was as fatal as Ebola, I think we would have taken it more seriously. But because when people get it, if they're asymptomatic, then they think, oh, well, that wasn't so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really matter if I spread it to more people because it wasn't so bad for me. But I think one of the things that we need to change in the language of this, if we start referring to asymptomatic patients as carriers,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that resonates for you, but when I hear that, when I think of them as carriers, that puts a lot more responsibility on people to not infect more people. It's very easy to be a typhoid Mary right now.
So, one thing I think is really unique about what you're doing is you're also using music and art forms to talk about the virus. So, how did those two fields intertwine for you?
Well, I think music has a way of cutting through whatever barriers people put up. I'm trying to think of which video you're referring to. Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to try everything, try every different method of explaining it to people, because maybe one way won't resonate, but another way will.
Mm-hmm.
If you can use music, if you can use art. I mean, I wish I had brought it up here, but I made a painting of COVID. It's a drip painting, so I'm just dropping the paint onto it. And I felt it was kind of fitting that in order to portray something that has taken away so much of our control, I had to let go of a certain degree of control by never touching the canvas. And then also, I threw some glow-in-the-dark paint in there, so when you turn the lights off, it looks like there's just germs everywhere, and like the painting itself feels infected. Just a way to like communicate to the subconscious.
So, you actually just recently became an RN, so I can imagine that this is definitely not the circumstances you expected to start your career in when you first decided that you wanted to be a nurse. I definitely didn't guess that you would be entering the field during a global pandemic. Does that scare you at all?
It's scary, but by the time the pandemic started, I'd already been working in the hospital for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd made a lot of friends. So the mentality that I have is it's kind of similar to a soldier that's just finished his deployment but decides to go back anyway because they just want to be there for their brothers and sisters. They want to help out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's scary, but I don't see myself doing anything else.
So, what do you think more healthcare workers would want people to know about the virus, not only about the dangers of the virus and how serious it is, but what would you want them to know about the way that it's being handled in hospitals?
Well, it's I mean it's definitely being mishandled because all the misinformation and the doubt that people have been uh, putting into the guidelines. Social distancing works. Masks work. It's a time where we're going to need a lot of discipline, and I don't think many of us are used to changing our lives so drastically for so long. It feels like holding your breath, and at a certain point, you just have to gasp for air. But uh, there are ways to get used to it, and I sympathize with people that are having a hard time coping with the isolation. I mean, I'm lucky enough to be living with my parents right now. If I was just living alone and just socially isolated every day, I'd be going crazy. So I empathize with that, and I encourage any other healthcare workers, as hard as it is when you're talking to people that are airing their grievances about this, start off with empathy. Um, but we're gonna have to use a lot of discipline if we're gonna get through this.
So, you've been playing music before this pandemic happened. How do you think your style or your purpose in your artistry has changed as you started to deal with, this crazy work life?
I mean, it was always a stress relieving thing, even all in all the stressful times before now. But I think the one thing that's changed is just the ability to connect with so many people.
Mhm.
Um, the there was a video that I made with a Black Lives Matter painting, the one that where it's all black and then the light changes on it and you can see the fist.
Mhm.
I want to show you something. What do you see? A black rectangle? Is it a minimalist thing? Maybe it's a dark room, or the night sky in a city without stars. Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe there's something there, hiding, or being hidden. Sometimes it's hard to see something right in front of us if you're looking at it from the wrong angle. Some people have seen it their whole lives. But once you see it, you have a choice. You can pretend it's not there, or you can do something about it. Inside. And I got the piano uh, from another TikTok friend. I just reached out to him and said, hey, do you want to be a part of this? He said, absolutely. So the collaboration aspect, I think, has substituted a certain amount of the social isolation
Mhm.
that I've been feeling, just working with others to make music.
So, dealing directly, so directly, kind of with this virus, I'm sure isn't the most uplifting thing to deal with from day to day as a healthcare worker. So, what are some positive projects or things that you're looking forward to creating in the future?
I am in the middle of editing a few videos. I made a Thor costume a couple years ago, all by hand, and I've just gotten back into playing clarinet for the first time in like 6 years. So I'm gonna put out a video soon, playing the Avengers Endgame theme, like right during the final battle, and ask other people to add their own instruments to it, and just so we can try to make some sort of a TikTok orchestra.
Awesome. Well,
And
thank you so much.
I'll still make more of these kinds of videos, just to keep people informed.
Yeah.